In January of this year, Dr. Russell Mortensen came to Montgomery to be the executive director of the Alabama Historical Commission. He was to serve in this position until a search committee could find a permanent director. Today, he cleaned out his desk and is leaving. But he doesn't leave with hard feelings. He leaves with a sense of accomplishment, but there are still some things that need to be worked out. As far as politics and history, Mortensen says there's no place.
I have never seen a state that is so politicized and so personalized. Everybody is somebody else's cousin, you know. I can talk to a member of the legislature, they can come over and talk to me, and the clerk of some committee over there is their first cousin, the Speaker of the House of Representatives is their second cousin. Everybody's related. And I think that is good, but don't touch me, because the bad part about it is, don't touch me or I'll tell the Speaker, or don't touch me or I'll tell the Lieutenant Governor, or don't touch me or I'll raise hell with the governor or something like that. That aspect of it, I think, is bad.
Dr. Mortensen believes the Alabama Historical Commission should be left alone to act as it wants to. He doesn't believe that the pending legislation in the Alabama House in some respects will be good for the commission, particularly the parts which would alter the makeup of the commission. But that's an administration-supported bill, and Governor Fob James has one of his aides assigned to monitor the activities of the Alabama Historical Commission. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Okay, we're talking about forced overtime, the unfair administration, what we feel is unfair as far as the administration of attendance control program. Locally here we're having what we feel is low wages as compared to the rest of the country. We also have a productivity pay plan that we finally worked most of the bugs out of. Seems to be working fairly good here locally. We've had quite a few problems over the years with it. Again, I think nationally plus locally we feel like excessive supervision. It's been a real problem.
Scenes like this one are becoming more common here in Montgomery. Gas stations closed because there's no gas to sell. The stations that are open are doing a brisk business. People are trying to make sure they have enough gas to make it through the weekend. At the fuel terminals on Montgomery's west side, National Guardsmen and law enforcement officials are keeping a close eye on trucks loading up and making deliveries. Police escorts are sticking close to the trucks to prevent any violence. But the striking truckers say the escorts are unnecessary, that no incident of violence has occurred that can be traced back to a trucker.
We have not attempted to stop a truck, not just the gasoline trucks, but a truck from going where they wanted to go. And we will continue to be that way. Now, this protection, as far as I'm concerned, looks good to the public. It looks good to somebody that could stand political gain from it, but I think it's one hell of a waste of money.
The escorts have helped in getting fuel out, with agricultural interest, police and fire departments getting top priority. The truckers are vowing to continue their shutdown. They say that the Interstate Commerce Commission's 5.6% surcharge proposal is insufficient. Independent truckers are meeting across the state this weekend, deciding what course of action to take in their shutdown. In the meantime, until a breakthrough occurs, you can expect to see a lot more signs like this one on gasoline pumps across Alabama. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
The state of Georgia may call itself the Peach State, but the city of Clanton bills itself as the peach capital of the world. For the past 30 years, the small central Alabama city has hosted the Chilton County Peach Festival. It's grown from the days when there was only an auction of the best baskets of peaches into this year's three-day celebration. Following a parade this morning, 150 residents filled Clanton City Park for the annual auction. On hand for the event was the 1979 Little Miss Peach Queen, Marcy Maddox, and this year's Peach Queen, Lisa Mills, and her court. The girls were chosen last night at the Peach Pageant. By now you may be saying Chilton County residents are taking the yellow and orange fruit just a little bit far. But no one was more amazed than this reporter who watched the bidding on the first place basket of peaches. After more than 5 minutes, the basket was sold to the highest bidder, a local supermarket who donated the peaches to Governor Fob James. The price tag, $2,075. The number 2 basket went for $1,000, and the third place winner sold for $300. What does one look for when choosing the best peaches?
Peaches are judged on size, color, and uniformity of size, and the way they are placed in the baskets.
Is there any specific things that a judge will look for?
Well, he will look mainly for the uniformity of size and the color of the peaches.
What does that indicate?
It indicates that the baskets, all through the baskets, are the same.
22 Chilton County growers entered their peaches in the competition, and all baskets were sold, netting $4,600, which JC's president Ken Patterson says will go back into the community through various projects. Residents plan to attend an evening peach ball to cap off the festival. From the peach capital of the world, Clanton, Alabama, Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
Day 7 of the independent trucker shutdown. The Montgomery Group is focusing its efforts on the fuel terminals in West Montgomery. The terminals are taking on the appearance of an armed camp. There are as many policemen as there are truckers. Reports of violence have subsided since earlier this week, and something of an uneasy stalemate continues. At least 3 independent trucking groups have emerged in the state. The West Alabama Association met yesterday to vote on the 5.6% surcharge offered by the Interstate Commerce Commission. The vote ended in a 53-53 deadlock. It will try again tomorrow. And Arnold Wilder, the president of the West Alabama Group based in Tuscaloosa, told TV 12 News today that a petition will be hand-delivered to the Public Service Commission tomorrow morning. The petition will ask for a state surcharge for truckers hauling within state lines. And what about the shortage of gas caused by the fewer deliveries? This was the scene on the Southern Boulevard this afternoon at one of the few gas stations we found open. And what about the people waiting in the lines?
It's busy.
I think it's ridiculous, man. How much? I'm telling you, I'm talking about a nice Sunday afternoon like today. I don't work 40 hours a week. I only get the weekends off to enjoy myself. And then on a pretty Sunday afternoon like this, I got to fight this heat and try to get a little gas.
Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
Well, EPA and all the other regulations that the USDA is putting on them, has a tremendous problem with our farmers because it's getting so like fertilizer, insecticide, and such things as this. The restrictions are so strict that these problems present to the Department of Agriculture because the farmers think that the local state departments enforce it, even whereby they do not.
Introductions, and we may miss a few folks. The reason for the few empty seats at the Euro Federation, Goodwin Myrick was with us last night and represented this group, and I'm not sure there's any.
In connection with some visits that were made to me by farmers from Alabama, both in connection with the Alabama Farm Bureau and the American Agricultural Movement, and then some studies that I've seen from the national level, they're in a very dire straits. We're losing them at a fairly rapid rate. I think that's something that this society of ours just can't tolerate. In conjunction with that, and because of that, I have formed, along with some other senators, a family farm task force at the national level. We have, at this time, roughly 25, and hopefully we'll get 35, 40 senators involved on our side. The House side, I think, is moving fairly rapidly toward a large number of congressmen, and we'll focus our attention on what we can do in the 1981 Farm Bill to aid the family farmer and to turn this situation around. I don't think it's good for the family farmer. I don't think it's good for the economy of the small rural communities in this state and across the country. And frankly, I don't think it's good for the urban citizen to have food and fiber production in this country controlled by a very few people.
Director. Alton Jenkins, Director. I knew all this was going to blend in.
It's absolutely necessary that the producers of food and fiber have a gasoline allotment and diesel fuel allotment for them to produce this. This is essential as I see it.
Do you see a problem with allotting gas to truckers, allotting gas to farmers?
Well, any type of allocation system or rationing system, if you have to go into it, we had that experience in World War II, and there are certain people in certain industries and in certain things like agriculture that have to have it. We depend on them. We depend on them for food, and they have to have a priority over other people. I think there are certain types of people, because of their work, that require a priority.
Citizens at the meeting wore tags expressing their views on the proposed annexation. There were many more no's at the meeting than yeses. Unlike last March's meeting, the citizens were calm at this one, and many expressed sympathy for the position their legislators are in. Senator Don Harrison said he plans to introduce the annexation bill in the legislature, but both he and Representative Jack Venable want the voters to decide the issue.
Now, you put us in a very untenable position, not those of you against it. There's no way, as Senator Harrison says, we can win. We're going to lose, and I know that. But the only way I know to solve this issue, and I think if any of you are honest enough with me, you will agree, that the only way to solve it is to vote.
One of the biggest complaints about the proposal is that it would take police jurisdiction away from part of Cusada and give it to Millbrook. If the issue does come to a vote, the large number against it are afraid that it could pass if many of the citizens who didn't show up for the meeting do show up to vote for the annexation at the polls. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News, reporting.
Alabama state troopers have gathered some radio equipment, recorders, and other pieces of radio hardware in their effort to try and cut down on the threats broadcast on citizen band radios. Elaine Hughes drives an oil tanker, and she has listened to those threats and says at times the language gets nasty, the tone indignant, and the verbal abuse high. Mrs. Hughes' truck was hit by bullets while she was driving one night, and she now takes those threats seriously. She's on her way home to park her truck. The troopers say they've set up 75 monitoring stations statewide and plan to prosecute on all arrest cases. In addition to monitoring the possible calls of threat and harassment, the state troopers are planning to key in on the use of obscene language on the CB radio. They are, however, being fairly mum about their entire operation, not mentioning the possible location sites of their monitoring devices, what type of equipment they plan to use, or how many troopers are involved in all. They're hoping this veil of secrecy will make their entire efforts more successful. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
What you've just seen is the explosive force of just a half a gallon of gas ignited in the trunk of an ordinary car. The force of the blast ripped a hole in the trunk, bent out the back of the car body, and sent flames shooting through the interior of the vehicle. Assistant Fire Marshal Bill Partridge says storing gasoline in an unsafe container or location is like playing Russian roulette.
You can have gasoline in the trunk of your car, or you can have even a leaking gas line where the vapors can get into the car. And the children in the back seat of the car, and Daddy lights up a cigarette and it blows them away.
What would this mean out on an interstate or a highly traveled area?
Probably multiple car wrecks, multiple deaths.
Partridge used a spark to ignite the gas can, which had a small leak the size of a pin. And he adds the same thing could happen under different circumstances, like storing a lawnmower in a room with highly combustible chemicals or keeping a gas can near a hot water heater. If the vapors are ignited, the results could be devastating. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
Twenty-year-old Shirley Ann Stewart was reported missing from her home on West Dixie Court shortly after 6:30 this morning. Miss Stewart is mentally retarded. She was wearing a partial body cast following recent back surgery. About 8:30, she was found on Highway 143 near the Alabama rendering plant. She had been shot 3 times in the back, and it was later discovered she had been raped. When she was found, Miss Stewart was clutching some plums from a nearby plum tree. Investigators were carefully going over the scene of the assault about a quarter-mile off of 143 down an overgrown path. Sergeant E.B. Alford of the Montgomery Police Department.
We began a search of the area here. We did locate a crime scene area, and now it's being processed by our evidence technicians, and we have located some evidence to indicate this is where the attack took place. At this time now, we have a lookout on a vehicle that we think might be involved in this investigation.
Shirley Stewart was taken to Baptist Hospital and underwent emergency surgery. At last report, she was listed in serious condition. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
This morning at approximately 6 a.m., Shirley Ann Stewart, a black female aged 20, of 645 Dixie Court, was abducted from the Upper Wetumpka Road and Dixie Drive by 2 white males driving an old model Chevrolet station wagon, dark blue in color. cars described as being very dirty. This area is better known as the King Hill area of Montgomery. Miss Stewart was found north of Montgomery on Highway 143 near the old city dump. She had been raped and shot several times with a large caliber weapon. She had presently undergone back surgery where she was wearing a partial body cast at the time of the attack. The victim is now in ICU following surgery from the gunshot wounds. Her condition is listed as serious at Baptist Hospital. We appeal to the public for any information regarding this brutal attack on this young woman. We would like to give the number of the secret witness for those that don't know it. It's 262-4000. The information comes in on a recorded line. We handle it discreetly. Anybody that doesn't want to get involved as far as their name, just call us and give us information on this. I guess probably in my years in police work, this is one of the most brutal attacks that I've seen due to the fact that this young woman is also mentally retarded. The back surgery, her present condition, it takes something short of an animal to do an attack such as this.
State Trooper David Darden noticed this gold station wagon driving on the southbound shoulder of Interstate 65 south of Montgomery. When he attempted to stop the vehicle, the driver sped away. The trooper pursued, and at one point, the 14-year-old driver tried to run the officer off the road, but was unsuccessful. Just before reaching the Hope Hull exit, the gold station wagon left the road, plunged through a fence, and in between these poles. The car came to rest across this field where the occupant fled on foot. Darden chased the youth, apprehending him. Throughout the highway chase, Darden reported the youth was reaching for something, possibly a gun. The juvenile never had a weapon, but it wasn't long before officers realized what he had been grabbing and swallowing: drugs. The youth was taken to Baptist Medical Center, where he was treated and released into the custody of the Montgomery Police Department. At the hospital, troopers learned the 1973 car had been stolen earlier this morning, and the youth was one of 4 escapees from the Mount Meigs Industrial School. The other 3 juveniles were arrested by Montgomery police. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
Well, I plan to straighten up quite a few things in District 4, and especially in the West End area. You have outdoor facilities that are not adequate for people to live out there. You have a housing. We have no recreation facilities. So many things need to be done in District 4.
Okay, there are 4 people now in the race. You make the 4th person. It's going to be kind of crowded. Won't it be difficult for the people there to make up their minds?
Well, no, I think at this time I'm the people's choice.
Captain Don Terry held a news conference this afternoon to announce the arrest of a suspect for the kidnapping, rape, and assault or murder of Shirley Ann Stewart. 27-year-old Marvin Hughes of 32 Fuller Street was arrested this morning around 8:30, less than 24 hours after the initial report was made. Hughes was picked up at McDonough and Columbus Streets. He was armed at the time of his arrest but gave no resistance. Captain Terry told reporters that a second suspect is now being sought.
We're presently looking for a white male, the second subject in these crimes, identified as a heavy build in his early to mid-20s, approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall. Is reported to have reddish blonde, shoulder-length greasy hair, mustache with a small goatee. Also that he has tattoos on both arms and a scar over one eye. We request that anyone having information as to the whereabouts of this individual, please contact this police department or the secret witness immediately. This has been an outstanding job of dedication and endurance on the part of the officers in this case, most of which have not been home since being assigned to it early yesterday morning.
This is the car police say was used to pick up Shirley Ann Stewart near her West Dixie Court home yesterday morning, where she had been reported missing around 6 o'clock. She was wearing a partial body cast from recent back surgery and a nightgown. Around 8:30, she was found on Highway 143 near the Alabama rendering plant. She had been raped and shot 3 times in the back with a large caliber pistol. At last report, Shirley Ann Stewart remains in serious condition at the Baptist Medical Center. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
More than 3 weeks ago, 14-year-old Carl Allen McDonald escaped from the Roebuck campus in Birmingham. Yesterday, he was captured after driving a stolen car into a field following a high-speed chase on Interstate 65. At the scene, the youth collapsed under what officers believe to be narcotics. His mother says it was alcohol. He was rushed to Baptist Medical Center, treated, and released into the custody of Montgomery juvenile authorities. Tomorrow afternoon, McDonald will receive a hearing charged with leaving the Birmingham facility and being in possession of stolen property. This afternoon, his mother said her son didn't steal the car. She says she knows who did and has signed a warrant against that person.
Carl was with a male companion, middle-aged. I have signed a warrant under contributing to have him brought in, and all of it try to be worked out. What I'd like to see done is this hearing put off till I can find out if I can get him the help he needs.
Mrs. Keene also charges the Division of Youth Services is not providing enough protection against homosexual attacks at the facility and the right care for her child.
I think he needs psychiatric help. I think Carl's mind is in a turmoil, and it has been for the last year or so. And I can't get through to him, and Miss Jessie Morrison with Roebuck campus has informed me that she'll see to Carl's needs, that she doesn't feel like that he needs mental help, and that if he does, that she has a degree that she can help him.
Legally, 14-year-old Carl Allen McDonald is a ward of the state. Mrs. Keene says if she can't get what she considers proper psychiatric care for her son, she'll fight the state in court. In the meantime, she plans to meet with youth aid officials in Montgomery to see about a psychiatric evaluation, hopefully before the youth is possibly sent to another state facility. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
Skylab is scheduled to fall to Earth sometime during the first half of July, the latest estimate being July 12th. NASA officials are trying to control Skylab's re-entry and prevent it from falling over heavily populated areas. But because no fail-safe solution has been reached by the government, it was announced in Montgomery that a 100% effective Skylab protection device has been developed.
Sun Manufacturing Company of Montgomery, Alabama, is proud to announce the development as of Friday, June 22nd, of a Skylab repellent.
The Skylab repellent sells for $2.99. The repellent is a powder you mix with ordinary tap water. According to Henry Klingler of Sun Manufacturing, the mixture, when applied to the body, creates a protective shield that repels any falling space debris sent up prior to July 1st, 1979. The repellent has 4 easy-to-follow directions, including step 1 that suggests the mixture works best when used inside a mine shaft or other subterranean passage. If by some strange twist of fate the repellent fails, like any reputable business people, Sun Manufacturing will gladly refund your money.
Or you may apply your refund on the purchase price of our newest product, which is Satellite Reentry Impact Balm.
The makers of the Skylab repellent have the utmost confidence in their product. After all, they say since it was developed, no one that's used it's been hit by any type of satellite. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
By resolution, if you just read this as it says, or by resolution as provided in this Constitution. It does say that by resolution, the only time you can do it is in the organizational section.
No, actually, the water board, Jefferson County, taking up the whole state protection.
In the right place.
State Representative Alvin Holmes and Montgomery Mayor Emery Falmer were at odds to begin with over one bill introduced by Holmes to require the mayor to receive prior approval from the city council before filing any lawsuit or incurring legal expenses. Holmes said the council should approve such action. Farmer said if the council wanted to, a resolution or ordinance could be passed to require their approval, but an act of the legislature was not needed. By far, most of the interaction was between Probate Judge Walker Hobby and County Commission Chairman Mac McKinney and Commissioner Bill Joseph. State Senator Don Harrison has introduced a bill to allow Probate Judge Walker Hobby to set the salary of his chief clerk and confidential secretary. McKinney and Joseph refuted the parallel made between the probate judge and the mayor in the basic idea of the bill. Another conflict arose in a bill again introduced by Harrison, which would allow the probate judge to raise recording fees. The bill would also give the probate judge some control over the appropriation of the money, and Commissioners McKinney and Joseph said the commission would be held responsible to auditors despite the legislation. The delegation will meet again within a week to vote on the 12 bills pending. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
The temperature was 36 degrees on the night of February 19, 1979. The residents of this house at 28 West Ogden Road, Mrs. John Seymour, had just returned home from the hospital after recovering from a stroke. Mrs. Seymour's gas furnace was disconnected due to company regulations saying that it should be repaired. Alagasco employee Robert Earl Bobby Duke came out and turned the heat on for Mrs. Seymour, violating company procedures. Duke was fired for that act. Now Duke is trying to get his job back. At issue in this matter is the possibility of an elderly woman freezing to death and the violation of company regulations, and whether Duke, doing what is morally right by turning the heat on, should be held legally liable in violation by Alagasco Corporation.
Without me knowing it, they cut off my gas. And I was sitting in my den, and my throat began to get sore, and my nose was sniffy, and I knew I was catching a bad cold, and I thought I'd go out and turn up the furnace, and I went out and found that the furnace was off. So I immediately called for help, because I knew that at my age, I'm not very young, I'm 69 years old, and my health wasn't too good at that time, and I didn't want to have pneumonia.
Duke had worked for the gas company for 22 years before he was fired.
I could not see in any way that this lady should suffer the tremendous physical damage that she would receive by not having any heat in the house at that time.
Mr. Duke did a very heroic thing and in fact saved the gas company perhaps a horrendous lawsuit brought either by Mrs. Seymour or by her heirs for what could have been the wrongful death at that time last winter.
When contacted today, Alagasco Corporation employee T.I. Hawkins said the firm or any of its employees wouldn't comment on the Duke matter because it is presently in arbitration. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Final rebuttal arguments were made before the Public Service Commission by Alabama Power Company attorneys, bringing to an end 6 months of testimony. Power company attorneys questioned the final witnesses, hoping to convince the PSC that $288 million must be granted in rate increases to keep the power company a viable, financially sound firm. The power company has worked long and hard on this case, which began nearly 3.5 years ago. In November of 1975, the utility filed motions for a $106,000 rate increase. It was denied by the PSC. The power company appealed it to the Montgomery County Circuit Court, and that began a long series of motions, denials, appeals, and subsequent rate increase requests. Throughout the entire ordeal, the power company got only part of what it had asked for. That led to the December 20th, 1978 filing of a rate increase request totaling $288 million. The power company has spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 in attorney's fees, the printing of testimony, the financing of a large contingency of support personnel, and this has been throughout the entire period that the case has been open. The $400,000 figure, however, does not include the cost of court litigation over the related appeals. The Attorney General's office has also spent a great deal of time on the case, appointing 3 full-time attorneys to argue against such an increase. The Consumer Protection Office, Legal Services, and the PSC staff itself has involved time and money in these hearings. Nearly 12.5 witnesses have testified before the commissioners, massing volumes and volumes of details that must be weighed by each commissioner before the ruling is made. The power company has already received a 9.5% increase in its annual rates. That came after emergency rate case hearings back in March. The PSC order was issued on March the 6th. Since that time, the power company has been arguing for the full 33% increase that it originally sought. The Public Service Commission has set July 19th as their deadline and have promised to issue an order before that time. They're expected to issue that order probably during their July meeting. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
The derailment happened around 1:30 yesterday afternoon in Bibb County between the towns of Ashby and Randolph. The locomotive was pulling 14 flatbed cars loaded with pulpwood from Talladega to Selma when it left the tracks after rounding a curve. The engine plunged about 40 feet off the track bed and landed upside down. The blaze was fueled by leaking diesel oil from the engine, setting fire to nearby woods. The 3 men in the engine were burned beyond recognition. Their bodies had to be cut from the wreckage. One other crewman, H.L. Bullard of Selma, was injured when he jumped from the train. He was treated at a Selma hospital and released. The Montevallo Fire Department fought the blaze. 4 firefighters were knocked about 30 feet off the tracks when the 3,000 gallons of leaking diesel fuel exploded, but they were not seriously injured. The flatbed cars were scattered along both sides of the track bed, ripping up the bed and track as it derailed.
Southern Railway officials say they will have to finish cleaning up the wreckage before determining what caused this derailment that claimed 3 lives here in Bibb County. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
I think I owe it to the members of the House and Senate to give them an opportunity to consider this legislation. I don't want to go into somebody's House district and ask the question why they voted against legislation which would remove dead people and duplicates from the voting list. I think they should be given an opportunity to consider the legislation and to vote it up or down. If it's necessary, I think that it's my responsibility to, go to the people and say, hey, we've got some, serious problems with our election laws, and your House or Senate member is opposed to it, and I want your help. You need to talk to him, or either vote him out of office next time.
Because the Farley nuclear plant is out of operation, Alabama power officials say electricity will be more costly to generate. Not only are some of the power company's facilities producing less electricity than usual, but the hot summer months are here, accompanied by high consumer demand.
Well, of course, the price for the rest of the summer will be largely determined by the order that this commission issues, and they must issue an order by the 19th. The main thing that I'd like to caution people about is that we've come out of 2 mild months of usage, and we're going into 2 high months of usage, mainly due to the air conditioning load. So they need to watch the thermostat on that air conditioner to keep the bills down as low as possible.
Allen says he hopes the Farley plant will be back in operation in July. If not, power bills will go even higher as the power company buys energy from other sources. But still, he says the power company is not expecting any brownouts or blackouts this summer. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
The education budget was not discussed in the House, but last week's defeat of the governor's gas tax bill was. Representative George Siebels of Birmingham went to the mic and offered a lengthy oratory on the trip made to the Briar Patch on the part of the 31 House members who voted for the governor's plan. Representative Siebels presented Representative Tommy Sandusky of Mobile, who sponsored the legislation, with a first aid kit so that he and the other 30 House members could patch up their wounds. A 2-page special order calendar was adopted and the House began its work. They passed a bill lowering the legal age of juveniles involved in criminal proceedings. If passed by the Senate, the bill would allow 16-year-olds to be prosecuted as adults only in criminal cases. The current age is 18. The House also passed a bill raising the price of a fishing license from $3 to $5. A bill authorizing the sale of table wine in grocery stores statewide was also approved. Complaints about the rising cost of Medicaid prompted State Senator Dewey White to ask other members of the upper chamber if the service can be afforded by the state. Senator White pointed out that the state Medicaid program is $31 million in the red right now. During the discussion on the Senate floor, Lieutenant Governor George McMillan suggested that the Senate Finance Committee call in Medicaid officials and ask them for an explanation. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing, and we have three that are scheduled to be safe, and we do not in any way want to
stop. I don't mean it to be the bus route, but let's suppose we're doing something in district.
Onto something, if you get it to that bus stop concept, it might as well take it on to a pickup point.
Mr. President,